Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate number 366, March the 10th, 2018. Welcome to the Saturday weekend edition of TowerGate. Lots to cover today, so let's get to it. First of all, before I get started on the last day or two's news, I do want to make, two responses to comments that were made on previous videos. First of all, on comment on day 364, I was commenting on something, and in passing, I said something about Danny Williams being, suicided, or he committed suicide, or he was dead, or something. I forget exactly how I worded that. But I did have a commenter, Racina, who alerted me to the fact that Danny Williams, in fact, is not dead, and that was all a hoax. And so I looked into that and verified it, and she is correct. Danny Williams is not dead. He's alive and well and doing fine. So my apologies to Danny Williams. I'm glad you're well, my friend. For those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, Danny Williams is the guy who claims that Bill Clinton is his biological father. Now, I haven't really spent much time on this. I mean, it's just one of those types of stories. There's a million of them, and I don't spend much time on those sorts of things. But back about, I guess it was a year and a half ago, it was in the summertime, Danny Williams did an interview on Alex Jones. And I could not believe, I don't know how many of you saw that interview, but I could not believe how much he looks like Bill Clinton. And his mannerisms are the same as Bill Clinton. He looks kind of like a mixed race Bill Clinton. I mean, so I guess he's got some evidence. Maybe, I don't know, I guess he would like to do a DNA test or something. But I'm convinced that just by looking at him, I mean, I would certainly believe that he is the offspring of Bill Clinton. But anyway, there was a story going around on the internet that he had, put his car in the garage and hooked up a hose and put it in his mouth and died of committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. But then, and he'd shut down his Facebook page or something. So he comes back and he gets on his Facebook and says, no, everything's cool. I'm not dead. That was a crazy rumor. Everything's fine. So yeah, it is true that that's a bad rumor. And the fact is Danny Williams is alive and well. So anyway, my apologies to Danny Williams or to anyone who I upset with that comment. Again, it was just something I said in passing. It was sort of, half joking, half serious, but something I was familiar with about this story about Danny Williams committing suicide, but I'd never really heard, whether or not that was true or not. Anyway, Danny Williams is fine. The next thing is I had someone on a comment ask if it's true about this, if this is a real bill or if this is like something from The Onion. This bill that's called Stop Lawless Actions of Politicians, H.R. 4526. No, this is not from The Onion. This is actually an actual bill that was introduced by Representative Todd Robkita, R-O-B-K-I-T-A. This bill, H.R. 4526, you can go look at it. It is on the House of Representatives website. That bill, if you look at it and you click on the link, you'll find that it was introduced into the committee in December of 2017. It is currently working its way through the subcommittee in the House Judiciary Committee. And the bill, basically what it is, it's a bill that deals with the immigration issue and would allow prosecution of politicians who are involved in doing things like the San Francisco mayor is doing, which is blocking the federal government's attempts to apprehend and arrest or deport illegal people who are in the country illegally who have committed crimes. Like this most recent incident that happened out in San Francisco when ICE went out there. They weren't out there just to snatch up dreamers or snatch up people who were just here illegally. No. They had specifically, as I understand, 111 individuals they were targeting. Specific individuals who were criminal felons. And so they were targeting criminal felons, they were not just going around arresting people who couldn't prove they were American citizens. They were targeting specific people with criminal violations. And so this is what that bill seeks to do. It seeks to make it I think it's probably already criminal what the San Francisco mayor did, but I think it just gets into it goes into some legal language that lets you actually define what is criminal, what is not criminal, what you can prosecute and not prosecute. Because, like in the case of the San Francisco mayor, you know, what she did was a general action. She took a general action. She gave a general warning to people, a heads up that ICE was coming. That's probably borderline legal illegal. But there's also instances where specific individuals who they know, a specific individual who they have in custody, maybe ICE is coming for them or immigration is coming for them, they will release that person. So I think what this law does is it deals with those situations where there's actually a specific individual with whom some politician is covering for or giving a heads up to or in some way interfering with law enforcement's ability to arrest a criminal individual. And I assume in this case, because it's dealing with the immigration issue, that they're talking about criminal illegals who are in the country. So yes, this is a real bill. If you want to look into it, it is H.R. 4526. You can go to the website, U.S. Congress website. It's probably on other committee members' websites as well. You can just click on the bill because they have all the bills on the website. You just click on it and you can read the law and what it's all about. So there you go. Okay, let's get into some news. Well, here's some good news. Trump has pardoned Christian Saucier. Now, a lot of you people are familiar with Christian Saucier, the Navy veteran who took a couple of photographs in a submarine that were classified. So they weren't secret or top secret or anything like that. Just, there was equipment in the background of a couple photos that he took. And, of course, he was, charged, criminally charged. And I think he was in jail for some time. He's out of jail now, but he still has this felony on his record. So by Trump pardoning him, that felony will be removed from his record because it's having an effect on him getting a job or what have you. So Trump has pardoned Christian Saucier, and of course the reason is quite clear. Because if you can do the things that the rotten Reverend Clinton, crooked Hillary, if you can do the things that she did, transferring thousands and thousands of classified emails, including SAP programs, from a government server onto a private unencrypted server, and you can walk scot-free, then Christian Saucier should never have been charged with his crime, because what he did was nothing compared to what the rotten Reverend did. So congratulations to Christian Saucier. Thank you, President Trump. You did the right thing. And I certainly hope that Mr. Saucier can get on with his life as a non-felon, because he certainly is not a felon. That was a ridiculous charge. He never should have been charged. That was just silliness. So, anyway, we got that under control. Now let's move on. It is being reported by the Daily Caller that Trump's lawyers are willing to set up an interview with Mueller on the condition that Mueller would end his investigation of Trump within approximately 60 days on these related matters, and that the questions would be limited to just the dismissal of Flynn and Comey. Well, as you know, from the very beginning when this whole talk started about testifying to Mueller, I'm 100% opposed to it. There's absolutely no way that Trump should testify to Mueller. In fact, the entire Mueller witch hunt is unraveling as we speak. The best thing they could do is go on offense. The best thing they could do is get that investigation going in Uranium One, where both Mueller and Rodenstein are deeply involved. And once you go on offense and you start talking about that, and then it becomes obvious that Mr. Mueller is a key person in this Uranium One deal, because he helped to cover it up or kept it silent or didn't take it to the Congress, which was he should have been obligated to do. So I 100% disagree that Trump should say anything to Mueller. I would tell him to pound sand. The best thing Trump could do, let him go on with his investigation. He only looks sillier and sillier by the day. And as more revelations come out about what really happened with the frame-up and the coup of the election of 2016 and all the players involved in that, Mueller continues to be exposed. Of course, we have the Uranium One hearings, which they need to get going. I would just let these things go. I mean, Mueller at this point, I don't think anybody is even paying attention anymore to what Mueller's doing. He's a clown. And, you know, God knows what Mueller can trip Trump on. You know, it doesn't have to be even really a crime. It can be just something he said, a process crime. It could be anything, a misstatement, something someone said that's not true that Trump can be asked about. And then if Trump doesn't say what that person said, then Mueller has got a charge against him, even though the charge may be false because the person may have said something that wasn't true. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can play this game, and that's exactly why Mueller is there. He's there to do exactly that. Why would Trump's attorneys set him up like that? I just can't imagine that. Now, one of his attorneys is actually John Dowd. Now, I do believe John Dowd was one of Pete Rose's attorneys. How did things work out for Pete? Pete went to prison. Then he had to go to the halfway house down here in Cincinnati, the Talbot House, for 6 months. He had to pay a lot of money in fines. He'll never get into the Hall of Fame as long as he's alive, as far as I can see. He's banned from baseball or having anything to do with Major League Baseball. So, yeah, things didn't work out very well for Pete with Mr. Dowd representing him. And I don't know. And Ty Cobb, the other lawyer, he seems clueless. He thinks Mueller's a great guy. Straight up player. And he's the one who's telling Trump he should testify. No. Everyone I know with any common sense at all is saying that it would be a disastrously stupid idea to even talk to Mueller. I can't understand that. Why any lawyer would say you got to talk to Mueller. Yeah, I mean, he may be forced to, but I would drag that son of a gun out for as long as I could. I'd take it to the Supreme Court if I had to. I mean, Mueller's playing the game. I would play a game myself. I definitely wouldn't have Trump sit down with Mueller and his team. That is just absolutely beyond stupid. Let's move on. Nunes House Intelligence Committee has a new person of interest. Her name is Shayla Murray. Man, the rabbit hole is getting deeper all the time. This is a little complicated, but I'll go through it slowly and as best I can, explain it as best I can, okay? So Nunes, you know, he sent out these letters. He sent out 12 letters. Now we've learned that he sent out 12 more letters. One of these people is a person of interest to him who received this letter, is this person, Shayla Murray. She received one of Nunes's letters about the dossier. Murray is a former journalist who served as the senior advisor to Obama and was Joe Biden's chief of staff. Murray's husband is Neil King, who was a former Wall Street Journal reporter who worked at the newspaper at the same time as Glenn Simpson, Peter Frisch, and Tom Catan. They are the three owners of Fusion GPS. Murray herself also worked at the Wall Street Journal until 2005. She joined the Obama administration in 2011. Neil King, her husband, is believed to have gone to work for Fusion GPS in 2016, probably in December. So Nunes is digging very, very deep into the rabbit hole. There's a lot of things that we talk about here on TowerGate, but we can only talk about the things that we know. There are a lot of things going on behind the scenes with Devin Nunes' committee, with Grassley's committee, with Goodlatte's committee, with the Inspector General, with what we just learned from Sessions about that he's got a person, an outsider, who's been working with the Inspector General. We're going to talk more about that on Sunday. But there's a lot of things going on here. But yes, this is just another interesting tidbit, and it shows you how deep the rabbit hole goes and how expansive that this whole, and extensive that this whole program was, this whole deep state coup, this frame up, whatever you want to call it, with all these people, all these connections. But I think that the thing that probably caught Nunes's eye on this particular case is not so much that this guy, that this guy, Mr. King, worked at Fusion GPS and used to work with Frisch and Catan and Simpson at the Wall Street Journal, along with his wife, Miss Murray. But the fact that she worked for Obama and Biden, and her husband at the same time is working for Fusion GPS. So Fusion GPS is doing this opposition research for the rotten Reverend Clinton campaign, and one of the people working there, one of the people working there's wives is working for Obama and Biden. Naturally, it's very easy for him to share information with her and for her to share it with Obama or Biden. It's the exact same thing we have with Bruce and Nellie Ohr. We have Nellie Ohr working at Fusion GPS, obviously sharing information back and forth with her husband Bruce, who's working at the Department of Justice, NSD Division, number 2 man at Counter Intel at the NSD. So again, it's just another one of those relationships that Devin Nunes is obviously looking at and going, that's interesting. We should find out more. So she, and that is why she has received that letter. And I would assume her husband as well. I mean, he was working at Fusion GPS. Obviously, he knows all about the dossier. But whether or not he shared it with her, we have to assume that he did. I mean, it's natural to assume that he's working at Fusion GPS in December of 2016. This is post-election. So what's he working there in post-election for? The election's over. Hillary lost. Trump won. But then Fusion GPS brings him in because they were continuing to work as they're continuing to this day. Fusion GPS is being paid as we speak to continue to prove the dossier is true and other things. So it's only natural to assume that if her husband is working at Fusion GPS, he's obviously sharing this information that he's getting with his wife, and she's working for Obama and Biden. So that's why Nunes sent her the letter. Makes a lot of sense to me. Justice Kennedy is soon to retire from the Supreme Court. It appears it will happen sometime over the summer. Fantastic. Well, that's good news. Now, Kennedy is usually the swing vote. He can go either way. He's kind of I don't know if he's Republican or Democrat. He's voted both ways. He's considered the swing vote in a lot of things that happen on the Supreme Court. But the beautiful thing about this is that unlike Bush and Bush Sr. and Bush Jr., when they did nominations to the Supreme Court, they would always try to find someone who was a real moderate or someone that would please the Democrats. They never were willing to fight for a good judge. But we learned from Judge Gorsuch that Trump is willing to fight for a real constitutional judge, and even Twitch McConnell was willing to waive the 60 vote rule in the Senate to get Gorsuch confirmed with 50, I believe he had, 53 votes? So, anyway, I believe they'll do the same thing again if they have to, because they'll never get a Democrat, not even one, to agree to any appointment by Trump for a judge. It's anything other than a radical left-winger. This isn't going to happen. Now, maybe we win 10 seats in the Senate, pick up 10 seats, and McCain dies, and we replace him with somebody that's reasonable. It's possible, but it's a long shot. I do think that they'll probably have to waive that rule again, or they'll never get, any type of Republican or conservative type judge confirmed. But it looks like we're going to get the opportunity. Trump is going to have the opportunity for another judge, and I don't think he's going to go for some sort of a moderate or anything like that. I think he's going to find another judge just like Gorsuch and try to go for another fairly conservative judge, a constitutionalist, and I imagine they'll have to waive the Senate 60-vote rule again in order to get him confirmed, and I think they will. All right, you guys like humor, I know you do. Well, Nancy Pelosi provides us with a lot of humor, and she's done it once again. So she's given a speech on Friday, and she said that she eats nails for breakfast and dons a suit of armor to go out and fight for kids. Oh, that's funny. Nancy Pelosi eating nails for breakfast and donning a suit of armor to go out and fight for kids. Yeah, that's right. I'm sure them kids in San Francisco feel real safe with over 1,000 criminal illegals running around the city looking to do harm to them or anybody else they come in contact with. Their parents, their brothers and sisters, or anyone else. Nancy Pelosi doesn't give a damn about those kids. She lives in a mansion right off the ocean there with very, very high security walls and private security, armed private security, everywhere she goes. And I believe for breakfast she doesn't eat nails. I believe she drinks Bloody Marys. And she takes her meds for whatever she's on. So she's a doped up mess by the time she gets to work. She can't think. She's incompetent. And quite honestly, I fully support her staying as a Speaker of the House. I hope they don't dethrone her, but that process is in motion right now. There is a Democrat here named Tim Ryan in Ohio that behind the scenes is working to get rid of Pelosi. Even before 2018, they think that she is going to cost them a huge defeat in 2018, and they're right. But it's still unclear to me whether Nancy Pelosi is going to be dumbass of the week based on that comment, or whether she is going to be able to beat out Elizabeth Warren, who right now will be announcing the dumbass of the week on Monday. And right now, she's in a close competition. Now, that would be 3 times for Nancy Pelosi if she wins that. But Elizabeth Warren is really in a close heat right now with Nancy Pelosi, because she just said in a speech about 2 weeks ago, she said, let's see. She said in a speech, we march, we persist, and we march in pink pussy hats. That is, that's a tough one. Well, and there'll be more competitors, I'm sure, that'll be in the competition for Dumbass of the Week, which we'll announce on Monday. So we'll take that into consideration. It's a very, very, very close call right now. More on the Parkland shooting and that deputy, Scott Peterson. The deputy in the Parkland school shooting lied. Last week, we reported that the deputy, Scott Peterson, said that the shots he thought were coming from outside the school. Now, if you remember, when he made that comment, the very next day on this video, on TowerGate video, I said that's absolutely insane. Insane. The sound of a gunshot inside of a building compared to a gunshot outside, it's a major difference. It would be hard, especially if you're a cop, not to distinguish between the muffled sound of a shot inside of a building compared to a shot outside where it's echoing and bouncing off things and reporting and all sorts of things going on. It's just, you would have to be a complete moron to confuse the two. I said that. But now we actually have evidence, because now we have a radio dispatch that prove he was lying. The Miami Herald is reporting that radio dispatch recordings clearly show that Peterson radioed in during the shooting and told the dispatcher that shots were coming from inside the school. Also, we're learning that when fellow officers showed up, Peterson told them not to go into the school. What a mess. Now, this next story, again, goes down deeper into the rabbit hole of players and this overall coup and everything that's going on around it. This is a little confusing, so I'll do my best to make it understandable what's going on here, because we have like 4 players involved, which we've talked about a little bit. But as you know, Senator Grassley is looking into this Russian Oleg Deripaska, who's alleged to have close ties to the Kremlin, and what his involvement was. And that was brought on by the fact that Christopher Steele contacted his lawyer via his lawyer, of course, is this guy. Let's see. His lawyer is this guy. Yeah, Adam Waldman. Christopher Steele contacts this attorney, Adam Waldman, who is an attorney for Oleg Deripaska. And he's trying to get hooked up with Senator Mark Warner. Steele is trying to get to Mark Warner, and he's using this attorney, and I assume he's a lobbyist as well as an attorney, to try to get to Steele, or trying to get to Mark Warner. Steele's trying to get to Mark Warner, okay? A little complicated, okay? But it appears here that we're now learning that Oleg Deripaska is claiming that Daniel Jones, a former FBI investigator and former staffer for Diane Turn In Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, and now Fusion GPS operative, told Deripaska's lawyer that the dossier was funded by a group of Silicon Valley billionaires and George Soros. This information was told to congressional investigators by Adam Waldman, Deripaska's attorney. So let me try to break this down. Mr. Waldman, Deripaska's attorney and also a lobbyist who was being used by Christopher Steele as a middleman so that Steele could get in touch with Warner, Senator Mark Warner. Adam Waldman apparently gave testimony to Congress where Adam Waldman said that his client, Deripaska, had claimed that Daniel Jones, who at the time was a former FBI investigator, told him that when he was an FBI investigator, that they had determined that the dossier was being paid for by a group of Silicon Valley billionaires and George Soros. But then he leaves the FBI and he goes to work for Fusion GPS to try to prove the dossier. So this is why Grassley is so interested in Mr. Waldman and specifically Oleg Deripaska. He's interested in Deripaska because he wants to know about how close his connections are to the Kremlin and Putin, but also if he's ever worked for Christopher Steele or if Christopher Steele has ever worked for him. And they probably want to find out about this connection. So we have Alan Waldman, Deripaska's attorney, basically saying that his client, Deripaska, is telling him that Daniel Jones, former FBI investigator, is saying that when he was an FBI investigator, it was Soros and some Silicon Valley billionaires that paid for the dossier. But now that he's working for Fusion GPS, he's trying to prove it was, true, that the dossier was true. So I guess that's where Grassley is going. I don't know. This is a very confusing set of circumstances and things going back and forth here. I guess we'll learn more about how any of these people, come into play. And I think that where Grassley is trying to go with this is whether or not Deripaska may have been a source of Steele for the dossier. I think that's where he's going, but it could be somewhere else. It's a little confusing and even hard to say, but down the rabbit hole, I'll tell you, down the rabbit hole. It's dark, it's deep, and it's confusing. Let's see. Here you go. You'll like this one. A National Security Council official under Susan Rice and the Obama administration has revealed to the author of the story called Russian Roulette, which was a story written, about the Russiagate thing. And in the process of doing research for this story, this individual, whose name is Michael Daniel, who was in the National Security Council under Susan Rice, revealed to the author of the Russian Roulette story that his team was prepared to launch a counterattack on Putin for election meddling by releasing damaging info on Putin and his family's crooked financial dealings, until Susan Rice got wind of it. Once she got wind of it, she called Michael Daniels into her office and demanded he cease and desist, stand down, and knock it off. Put an end to it. Matt Gaetz has confirmed that lawyer William J. Campbell, the FBI informant, according to Victoria Tunzing's statement, that Campbell was interviewed by the Arkansas U.S. Attorney in December of 2017, and this U.S. Attorney is investigating the Clinton Foundation and pay-for-play and possible charity fraud allegations. Yeah, I saw her on Fox News. Many of you probably saw her, and that's exactly what she said. She said that this attorney who's handling the case down there in Arkansas, investigating the Clinton Foundation, interviewed Campbell back in December. We assume he gave them all the documents and evidence that he presented to the Congress. They need to get that show on the road. They need to get that thing going. I imagine the reason why Congress is not doing anything with it right now and having hearings is because you have this ongoing investigation headed up in Arkansas by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. And there's a lot to look at, and there's a lot of evidence, man. A lot of evidence. And as I said before, and I've been saying for many months here on TowerGate, I know a lot of you find it hard to believe. It is hard to believe, but I'm telling you, I really believe that Hillary Rodham Clinton is going to be indicted, and I believe it's going to be the Clinton Foundation that gets her. Yes, she's guilty of the emails. Yes, she's guilty of all sorts of things on the Trump coup and all these sorts of things, but it's the Clinton Pay-for-Play Foundation, and charity fraud is a fairly easy thing to prove. A lot of people go down on charity fraud, and I think there's overwhelming evidence, and I do believe that the Rotten Reverend Clinton and Slick Willie, possibly Chelsea, and other people associated with the Clinton Foundation are going to be indicted. Be patient. It's coming. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with a deeper dive into more from that New Yorker story, as well as some other things going on. See you then. You guys take care and have a good night. Bye.